In 2019, retired Commander Michael Harrison, 62 years old, made the most important decision of his life. After 38 years serving in the Texas State Police, facing dangerous criminals, solving impossible cases, and risking his life countless times, retirement had finally arrived. But Michael didn't want an ordinary retirement. He didn't want a condo in the city, the traffic, the sirens, the endless chaos. He wanted peace, the kind of peace only found in silence, in wind sweeping across open land. What Michael didn't know was that the property he was about to buy for an absurdly low price hid something that would haunt him more than any case he'd ever investigated. And the one who would discover it wasn't him. It was Captain, a retired Belgian Malinois from the K9 unit, his most loyal partner for 10 long years. This is the true story of how a retired officer and his dog unearthed a secret that had remained buried for more than 4 decades. But before we dive into what Michael and Captain discovered, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Comment your city or country below. Are you in New York, London, Toronto, or maybe somewhere deep in South America? I love seeing where our viewers come from. It turns these stories into a global conversation. So go ahead and write your location in the comments. Let's see which city shows up the most tonight. All right, ready? Let's begin. Michael Harrison wasn't just any officer. He was the kind of man who ran toward danger when others ran away. For nearly 4 decades, he'd worked on the toughest cases in Texas: drug trafficking operations, murder investigations, undercover missions that tested his sanity. He'd seen humanity's darkest corners. When he finally retired in 2018, his pension barely covered expenses, about $2,000 a month. But he had savings, enough to fulfill a dream that had lived quietly in the back of his mind, to buy a piece of land far from everything and everyone. One evening, while browsing property listings online, he stumbled on something strange. The headline read, "Ranch, 50 acres, rural Texas, $400, must sell urgently." Michael read it 3 times. $400 for 50 acres was ridiculous, almost a joke. His instincts told him something wasn't right. But the part of him that craved peace, that needed a new beginning, whispered, "Check it out." He called the number. An elderly man answered. His voice was calm, tired, the voice of someone who'd lived too long with a secret. "Name's Samuel Edwards," he said. "That ranch belonged to my family for 3 generations. Nobody's lived there for over 30 years. I live in Arizona now, can't maintain it anymore. I just want someone to use it." Michael asked if he could visit. Mr. Edwards agreed, but added a warning. "It's deteriorated, and there's a structure in the back we could never open. My grandfather built it in the 50s and sealed it before he died in 1982. We never found the keys. If you can open it, go ahead." Something about that last sentence stayed with Michael. Why mention it at all? 2 weeks later, he drove 5 hours through dusty Texas highways to reach the property. The main house was little more than a skeleton. Walls cracked like dried riverbeds. The roof caved in, windows missing their glass. The air smelled of dry earth, rust, and memories. Nature had reclaimed almost everything. Vines twisted through door frames, the wind whispering through holes in the walls. But behind the house stood a second structure, solid concrete, no windows. Only a single metal door, completely sealed with welded plates. It looked less like a barn and more like a bunker. What kind of rancher builds something like that? Still, Michael saw potential. The land stretched endlessly, bathed in gold by the setting sun. It was quiet, peaceful, exactly what he'd been looking for. That night, under a sky full of stars, he called Mr. Edwards and sealed the deal. $400, and the property was his. By March 2019, Michael and Captain moved in. Captain, now 9 years old, had retired too. He was a strong Belgian Malinois, disciplined but affectionate, trained to detect explosives, narcotics, and hidden contraband. He'd saved Michael's life more than once. They began rebuilding. Michael repaired what he could, patching roofs, clearing debris, cutting back wild mesquite trees. It was hard work, but fulfilling. For the first time in decades, he felt alive again. Captain roamed freely, exploring the land, chasing the wind. But something about that sealed concrete structure disturbed him. From the very first day, Captain behaved strangely near it. He would bark, not out of curiosity, but with the sharp, urgent tone Michael recognized from countless operations. He would sniff the ground, dig lightly, then sit and stare at the door for hours. "Easy, boy," Michael would say. "There's nothing there, just an old shed." But deep down, he wasn't sure. Weeks turned into months. The ranch began to feel like home, yet Captain's obsession only grew. Every evening, as the sky turned red and purple, Michael would find his dog sitting before the door, ears perked, as if listening to something inside. Then came that night, a hot, breathless August night. Michael woke around 3 a.m. to frantic barking. Captain's bark wasn't just alarmed, it was desperate. Michael grabbed his flashlight and stepped into the humid air. The dog had dug a massive hole near the foundation of the sealed structure, dirt and rocks everywhere. His paws were raw, bleeding slightly, but he kept digging, growling at the darkness below. "Captain, stop!" Michael shouted, but the dog wouldn't stop. He barked once more and disappeared, vanished into the hole he'd made. Michael's pulse quickened. He ran to his truck, grabbed an acetylene torch and returned. If his partner had gone inside, there was no choice. He had to open it. For 40 long minutes, sparks flew through the night as he cut the welded plates. The metal was thick, industrial grade. Whoever sealed this door hadn't wanted it opened again. Finally, the torch broke through. The door creaked open, releasing a stale, suffocating breath of air. "Captain?" Michael called. From the dark, he heard a faint bark echoing back. He stepped inside. It was cold, silent. The beam of his flashlight revealed damp concrete walls. The air smelled of rust and decay. Then he saw Captain, standing still in the center of the room, tail low, staring at the floor. Michael approached and noticed something strange. The floor in front of the dog looked newer, a rectangular section, about 6 feet long and 3 wide, slightly different in color. Someone had dug here and then resealed it. Michael's instinct screamed one word: burial. He went back to his truck, grabbed his pneumatic hammer, and returned. For the next hour, the room filled with deafening echoes of metal breaking stone. Captain never moved, just watched. Finally, the concrete cracked open. Beneath it, compacted dirt. Michael dropped to his knees and began digging by hand. After several inches, the shovel hit something hard, metal. He cleared the dirt. It was a large chest, rusty but intact, with a heavy lock. He forced it open. Inside, stacks upon stacks of old US bills, yellowed with age. Money from the 70s and early 80s, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But beneath the money were documents, deeds, certificates, contracts, all in the name Samuel Edwards Sr. and photographs. Dozens of black and white photos showing the same elegant man beside well-known criminals, politicians, and traffickers from Texas's past. Faces Michael recognized from police archives, men thought long dead or never caught. At the very bottom, an envelope. Inside, handwritten records detailing shipments, routes, and names. A decade of organized drug operations from 1972 to 1982. Michael realized what he'd uncovered: a complete archive of early drug trafficking in Texas. Evidence powerful enough to destroy reputations, maybe even history itself. He sat there for a long time, staring at the chest. Now it made sense. The sealed structure wasn't just a bunker, it was a vault of secrets. Samuel Edwards Sr. had hidden everything, the fortune, the evidence, the truth, and sealed it shut before his death, ensuring no one could expose it. For nearly 40 years the secret had slept underground, until Captain unearthed it. Michael could have buried it again. No one knew he'd found it, but something in his conscience wouldn't let him. He called Mr. Edwards in Arizona and told him everything. The line went silent. Finally, the old man whispered, "My grandfather died when I was 18. We never knew what he was involved in. If you found this, Commander, do what you think is right. I don't want to know more." So Michael did the only thing his moral compass would allow. He contacted an old friend in the Historical Crimes Unit. After weeks of discussions, they reached an agreement. The documents would go to the National Archives. The truth would be preserved, but the names of living relatives would be redacted. The government couldn't pay him directly, but they offered something better: funds to restore the ranch and convert it into a small rural inn. They also offered him a contract as a consultant to train new K-9 teams, triple his former pension. When he told Mr. Edwards, the man wept over the phone. He later transferred the property fully to Michael's name, saying, "You could have kept the money and nobody would have known, but you chose integrity. Do something good with that land. Let it bring light, not more secrets." Over the next few years, the ranch transformed. The crumbling house became a welcoming inn with 6 guest rooms. The old sealed structure became a small museum, telling the story of what had been found, carefully, respectfully, and truthfully. By 2025, the property Michael bought for $400 was worth over $2 million. But to him, peace was the true reward. Not the peace of ignorance, but the peace of knowing he'd done the right thing. And Captain became a legend. A bronze statue now stands at the entrance. Captain, the dog who unearthed forgotten history. The real Captain, now 14, spends his days resting in the Texas sun, greeting visitors, a living reminder that sometimes instincts see what reason cannot. The files Michael uncovered became invaluable to historians. They appeared in 3 books, 1 television documentary, and dozens of university studies. For decades, people had speculated about the birth of organized trafficking in Texas. Now they had the evidence. Michael, in his occasional interviews, always says the same thing. "During my years on the force, I saw too many people choose the easy path: corruption, silence, greed. When I finally faced that choice myself, I wasn't going to be like them. My conscience is worth more than any amount of money." Mr. Edwards' family finally found closure too. The secret that had poisoned generations was gone. The truth, though painful, set them free. This story reminds us of something essential: that secrets buried in the dark will always find a way to the light. That integrity, even when unseen, always has value. And that sometimes the bravest discoveries come from a loyal heart and a sharp nose. If this story moved you as much as it moved me when I researched it, I'll ask for 3 small favors. Like this video so more people discover it. Subscribe for more true stories like this one, and share it with someone who believes in honesty and courage. And now, a question. If you had found that chest and no one would ever know, what would you have done? Would you turn it in like Michael did? Or would you have taken the money and buried the truth again? Write your honest answer in the comments. No judgment, just curiosity. Because in the end, life always gives us moments like this. Moments where nobody's watching, and the right path is the hardest one. But people like Commander Michael Harrison and his faithful friend Captain remind us that real honor still exists. Thank you for listening to the end of this story. It means more than you think. See you very soon in another story where truth, courage, and mystery meet again. Until next time, and have a peaceful day.